Net metering is back with the Supreme Court ruling in California. California Supreme Court ruled in favor of solar advocates and environmental group with their August ruling that forces the lower courts to consider their method of determining net metering rates in California. This will send waves throughout the country as every utility considers what's solar really worth. If net metering includes the full value of solar calculation, like Minnesota, the industry is not only safe, but it's on its way to higher ground. I'm Joel Robinson, founder, pilot, builder, and solar entrepreneur in Montana. I help people and businesses take control of their energy, money, and future using renewable energy. You can save a bunch of money or just do something really cool, like go off-grid or run your entire house with solar. Net metering is a billing mechanism that credits homeowners and businesses for the excess energy that they feed back to the grid. Solar production is used first at the home or business before anything is sent back to the grid. So only the excess is credited after it's used on site. I can tell you, some of my customers love watching their meter run in reverse. It's one of those very satisfying moments in life, and I love experiencing it with them. The rate the utility pays for the excess energy is really important because it puts a value on solar production. It puts a hard number on what solar is worth. All utilities have a little different way of doing it, and some pay full retail or one-to-one, and others only pay a fraction of that. This makes solar more or less value based on the net metering rate and which utility it is. It's a little bit of a difficult concept to understand, but it's valued different in different places based on political environments and policy. But let me tell you, it's a big deal. Net metering rates determine if solar is valuable or not. And the California Public Commission changed the way solar panel owners are paid for excess electricity when it's exported to the grid, switching from retail rates in NEM or NEMA 1.0 and 2.0 to a much reduced rate called avoided cost with their most recent NEM 3.0. This affected how much owners got paid for the excess power and changed the game for solar installers, causing layoffs and bankruptcy in the thousands. Really had a negative impact on businesses in California and ultimately slowed the adoption of solar. However, the installations changed to favor batteries more. Still worth it to go solar, but almost doesn't make sense without batteries. In California, a lot of batteries, high attachment rate. I've been concerned about Montana as well because Northwestern Energy, which is our public utility in Montana, has a trigger point set that when solar installations reach 5% of their installed customer base, the Public Service Commission will automatically review the rates for net metering. And I can tell you, Northwestern wants those rates to go down. They do not want to pay retail rates. And this ruling in California is really going to set the standard. The California Supreme Court sent the ruling back to the appellate court to include and consider all the additional costs that solar provides, not just the avoided costs. Huge win for solar advocates and a step in the right direction. But it's not a guarantee on what they'll do. They still have to make a decision. The Supreme Court didn't set the rates. So instead, the lower court has to follow a new or different method that includes the other benefits that solar provides, which are many. And I'll tell you about in just a sec. Solar provides additional benefits beyond the avoided cost. And honestly, we all know that. That's why it's so great. And that's why I'm in the industry. But it is hard to quantify. So what else will they consider as part of the cost? And how does solar benefit society, not just with energy? Let's dig in and get down to some more details. Value of solar is a method that's been pioneered by Minnesota, where not just the cost of electricity is considered, It's all of the other things that solar does. Here's 6 components that are considered part of the value of solar calculation. The first one's avoided energy. So every kilowatt that solar produces, it offsets the wholesale kilowatt or purchased kilowatt from somewhere else. That's easy. We know that offsets other costs, and that's been the baseline for determining solar value for a long time. The second one is avoided capacity, not having to build additional plants or build dams or other capacity. So we're offsetting capacity with solar as well, even though sometimes it doesn't generate at the best time. I've talked about that before. The other one are transmission and distribution deferral, which will save feeder or substation upgrades. And these can be expensive, or just deferral costs. The idea we're going to delay the upgrade by several years or maybe even a decade. It's really worth a lot of money. And Minnesota's put a number on that, even though it is hard to understand. An easy one is line losses. So every kilowatt that's generated locally doesn't have to travel long distances. Electricity has losses when it travels a long distance. One good number is 5%. We can say that of the electricity that is generated, only about 95% reaches its final destination because of losses and changes. The last two are harder to understand, and I'm going to go into some detail on those. The other one, number 5, is environmental, including the cost of solar, and 6 is a public health benefit. Both of these are a lot softer costs, and they're hard to understand. So maybe easier to question, but I dug into them, and honestly, I like these explanations. They made sense to me. So when we put a value on carbon or CO2, the EPA recognizes $190 per ton that's emitted to be the cost of CO2. The EPA now values the cost of carbon pollution at $190 per ton. The number is not random. It's the government's best estimate of the real damages caused by each ton of CO2 that we put in the atmosphere. Climate change, what we're seeing is more extreme weather events, things like stronger wildfires, which lead to higher insurance premiums, crop losses, flooding, and health problems. All are linked back to additional carbon in the atmosphere. This one's a little harder to put a link to, but it does make sense. The other costs are much higher. This one is really interesting. The Harvard study of 6 cities, it was back in 1993, is a classic study that tracked 8,100 adults in 6 U.S. cities, and particularly focused on air pollution 2.5, which is this really fine particulate. And what they found after studying these people across 6 cities is that people in more polluted cities had significantly higher death rates than those in cleaner cities. And the difference persisted even when it was adjusted for things like smoking and age. It created a solid link between long-term exposure to fine particulates from burning fossil fuels and reduced life expectancy. This study is truly revered. It's one of the first to clearly show how long-term exposure has a direct correlation to increased healthcare costs. As people are exposed to this smog and pollution, it's ingested in the body, causes problems with the heart and lungs. It's clearly linked and statistically important. It's really shaped the EPA standards and many later studies. So those are a couple soft costs. Those are harder to get an idea on what it's really worth. How does solar really offset these costs? But it's potentially part of the value of solar calculation because solar doesn't produce any smog, smoke, or fine particulate. It doesn't. Maybe there's some at the mine when it's originally mined, and that does make sense, but it could be all electric. And at the point when it's installed on a home or business, there's no pollution that comes from it. Clean, renewable energy, which has a high value to society beyond just what each kilowatt's worth. So in discussions with utilities and understanding net metering agreements, the value of solars can be much higher. And certainly the case of California, the Supreme Court has asked the lower court to reconsider their decision and most likely increase the cost of the net metering agreement 3.0 that had such a devastating effect in California. So this is great news because utilities all across the country are going to be able to look at this landmark study and know that solar's worth more than just the avoided cost. And it's really not a cost shift. We're talking about avoided costs for the whole system. Click on the link below to subscribe and watch my other videos and get a copy of my free energy calculator. And if you're interested, learn the 5 things you should do before going solar so you can make a good decision. I think everyone should learn about solar and know how it works, and ultimately make good decisions, whether it's right for you.